Hey everyone, I am here today to walk you through the steps on how to do screen printing by using a embroidery loop and some screen mesh. So that way you can create and customize your own little fabric mesh there. We want to start with this. Oh, and also a little stencil that will go onto the mesh once we get it together. So let's go ahead and get this going. We're going to go ahead and unscrew the screw here so we could pop out the small hoop that's inside. And then we're going to go ahead and grab the mesh and we're just going to lay it on top of it. And then we're going to grab the larger hoop and we're going to put that over. Let me just, there we go. Oops, I want to make sure it's like centered, that the smaller hoop is centered. Okay, so now that it's on there, I want to push this down. We want to flip it over because as we start tightening the screw to close it, we want to make sure that this here is nice and taut. So we're going to go ahead and push down on the lower ring, and we're going to pull corners, sides to make sure that it's evenly taut on all sides, and then resume screwing the tightening the screw. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to grab the stencil. We're going to want to adhere this, but sometimes it could be easy just by peeling it off and going on there, but sometimes, because how this is very thin vinyl, it could fold and stick, and it'll stick to itself. Very good. So we want to just go ahead and use the next thing that was in the kit, which is your transfer tape. So this transfer tape is going to help you get the stencil onto the hoop. Now this is really sticky, and so you're going to want to maybe to dull the stickiness, just go ahead and blot it onto your clothing, your jeans, your shirt, just so it won't be as sticky, so it won't be so hard to remove the transfer tape from the hoop. So now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to lay the stencil vinyl side up, and you can line it up with the little grid lines if you like. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure that sticks to the vinyl. So that way we could unstick the plastic backing of the stencil. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to place this right in the center, and you want to do it on the flat side here, not in here. I mean, you can put it in there, but you would probably have to trim off the edges, which you can, but I found it easier just by doing here on the flat side of the loop. So we're going to go ahead and place that on there, and I'll flip it over this time so that way you can really make sure that the vinyl is sticking to the mesh. Okay. And then you're going to want to start, when you're ready, start peeling the transfer tape slowly. Try to maybe get some of the edge there, just so that way it stays put. There we go. And you're going to want to save this. It does work for other things. So I want to show you how you can make your own stencil at home. So you want to hang on to that, put it back on its backing. Put that over here. So now we'll just flip it over again and make sure that it's really adhering to the mesh. There we go. So there's your stencil ready to go. If you would like to maybe cover these areas here so that way paint doesn't automatically get, accidentally get through these areas here, you could grab some blue tape, like painter's tape, or like the pale masking tape, and you could just go ahead and add some tape here. Make sure it really sticks, that there's no air bubbles, so that way paint doesn't seep through. So you're gonna grab your paint, and go ahead and grab the green paint. And you got your foam brush and your stencil. So if you want to do a practice run, you totally can. You could get a paper towel. You could lay the stencil on and then apply the paint and do everything that I'm about to show you how to do on the paper towel, just so you could get used to it, just so you could see, because you do have to have a certain amount of paint. A little bit of paint goes a long way with this type of paint. So if you want to do that before you actually start decorating your canvas bag, go ahead and do that practice design here. So I want to just go ahead and put some pumpkins here, but feel free to do whatever you like as far as design. Okay, so once you get the stencil on, and again you want the stencil to be on the flat side facing down. You want to line it up a little bit, and then you're going to grab your paint. And then, so first, what we're going to do is what they call, when you do more of a traditional screen printing, is flooding the screen. You're just placing, or just in this case with the paintbrush, you're just going to be like painting on a thin layer of paint onto the mesh without applying any pressure. Okay, that might be a little bit too much. Again, little goes a long way. So I'm going to hold this down, and then I'm just going to go, and I'm just going to lightly brush over. Again, not applying any pressure. You don't want to do too much paint, because when I first started doing this, I put too much, and then when I took off the screen, it just looked like this bubbly, spongy mess, and it didn't look good once it dried. So here we go. So just a nice, simple, thin layer. Paint that on. And then when you're all nice and done, then you're going to be tapping. You're going to start tapping it. You're going to start doing that, so that way you can push the paint through the screen, and it'll mark onto the canvas bag. Kind of satisfying. It's like working out your aggressions. Just tapping, tapping, tapping. If you feel like it's a little too dry, feel free to just, dunk it a little bit and then go over it again. But this looks good here. And you want to make sure you get the the edges, so they're nice and crisp. And then don't forget the stem, because the stem at this rate, it's like kind of going this way, so it's easy to forget like a part of it. But it'll give it like a nice rustic look too, so it wouldn't be too bad. So now we're gonna lift this. We're gonna lift this up and back. And there's our pumpkin. So as you can see, all the paint went through here onto the pumpkin. There's a little bit missing, and if you're comfortable with that, that's great. You could leave it as is, but you could also do little touch-ups. Since the brush is one of the round brushes, you could just dip it into some paint, and then just very carefully try to follow along where the edges of the pumpkin are meeting with the other, like if you're missing a spot, and you could just touch it up right there. Same if you didn't get like a certain spot, you didn't get enough paint through, and if there's just this whole spot there, just a little bit of paint, and then you could just brush over it. And there we go. Show you guys a few things you could do at home. If you wanted to keep using the same mesh, you can, again, just wash it off. It's best if you wash it off like now that it's still wet. You just rinse it underwater. Should be good as, ready to go. If you wanted to make your own stencil, you can by using some shelf liner. So this is some shelf liner that we had here. You could get these at the Dollar Tree. They have like little rolls of shelf liner, whether it's the clear shelf liner or even just the one that has the print. It doesn't matter. You could use either one. You could draw if you're really good at drawing, or you could trace something that you see. I even traced, I just pulled something up on my phone and then laid this over the phone, and then I just traced out this little bat shape. I don't know if you can see that. So now, I cut it with some really good like precision scissors, where you can use an X-Acto knife, but to be very careful with the X-Acto knife. You could cut this out, and then you would just repeat the steps that we did to apply this stencil, and you would have a new stencil that you could use. There is another way you could go about and make your own stencil. I did it with this one, which, as you can see, has been used really well. If you are familiar with Mod Podge, you can grab up the sheet, the fabric mesh sheet. You can trace or draw on it with pencil. So what I did was I grabbed my phone, I found a little leaf photo, and then I placed the mesh over the phone, and I was able to trace it. And then once it was traced, I grabbed the Mod Podge and a paintbrush, and I started painting a layer, actually 2 layers of the Mod Podge over the rest of the mesh, and creating it, the barrier. There was a term that they used for that, but it made it so where, just like the stencil, it won't go through. And you let it dry. I think I let it dry for about an hour and a half. Once it was totally dry, I was able to use it, and it worked great. So I went ahead and used it. Here's the leaf pattern, so it worked really well. So if you could see, I have all these stripes here for tape. This is just another way you could use, you could decorate your canvas bag. You can grab some tape and do some geometric shapes and mix in your stencil, just like I did kind of here. So this was like my practice one. I went ahead and, laid the tape down. And for the gold, I just used regular acrylic paint, the little tubes that you see for $1 at Walmart. Sometimes they have them at the Dollar Tree. I just grabbed a foam brush and a little bit of the paint, and then just painted in the squares. And then you could also maybe if you have a lighter color paint, you could get some Sharpies, and you can go ahead and like make little jack-o'-lantern faces. You could outline them like I did with the green Sharpie. I just went ahead and just went over the edges here. I noticed that if you were to use black or maybe even the same color, it doesn't work that well. I don't know if you could see it from here, but I kind of tried to do the black here. It just kind of bled too much to where it was just too light. So like these really neon or more fluorescent colors, they actually work really good, and I thought it looked good because it goes with the Halloween theme. And then of course you could use your Sharpies to draw. I'm not very good at drawing up, but I was like trying to go for some vines here. But of course you could do whatever you like. And then if you ever want to set these so that way it doesn't really wash off, or it doesn't wash off immediately, you could set it by using an iron and putting it up to the heat to, I believe, if you have like a canvas setting or linen setting or even just cotton, that would be the highest setting you could go. Just put like something over, like a paper napkin, parchment paper, maybe even just a thin dish towel. Just put it over, and then you could just go ahead and iron this, and for about 5 minutes, and then like circular motions. I also read you could put it into, once it's fully dry, of course, you want to do all this once it's fully dry, and I would recommend like just leaving it to dry overnight and before heat setting it. You could also throw it in the dryer for a few minutes. You could look that up. But yeah, that's how you would use the screen printing kit to decorate your canvas bag. Hope you guys have fun.